The Hobbit. Part 1. In a comfortable hole in the ground lives a hobbit named Bilbo. He is a Baggins, and Baggins do not go on adventures. However, Bilbo's mother was a Took, and Tooks do go on adventures. One day Bilbo's old friend Gandalf shows up and is in need of someone to go on an adventure. Bilbo has no interest in an adventure and tells Gandalf so. Gandalf volunteers Bilbo regardless. Bilbo returns to his house, and a little while later a knock comes at the door. He expects that it is Gandalf, but instead it is a dwarf, and the dwarf forces his way into the house. More and more dwarves arrive, each forcing their way into the house. Bilbo serves the dwarves food and drink, but he is very flustered about all of these dwarves in his house. At last Gandalf arrives with Thorin, a very important dwarf. Dwarves make themselves at home and raid Bilbo's pantry. They begin to sing and make merry. After hearing the dwarves' songs, an urge to go on adventure takes hold of Bilbo. Thorin tells of an adventure that could possibly get them all killed and talks as though Bilbo is already a member of their party. Bilbo has a panic attack. The dwarves begin to have their doubts about Bilbo, but Bilbo steps up and says that he is perfectly capable of going on the adventure. They continue to talk of plans. Thorin tells the story of how the dragon Smaug took the Lonely Mountain from the dwarves and how they intend to take it back. The dragon is too mighty for them to assail, so what they need is a burglar, and Bilbo is to be their burglar. When Bilbo wakes in the morning, the dwarves are gone, and he is a bit glad that they have gone without him. However, Gandalf comes in and wonders why he hasn't come along yet. Gandalf rushes Bilbo out the door without any of his things, and he makes it just in time to meet the dwarves. The dwarves put him on a pony and give him some things that make Bilbo look much like a dwarf. They head out quickly. Many days they travel, and Bilbo misses his home, but there is not much he can do about it now. One night when they set up camp, Gandalf is missing. They fail to get a fire going due to the pouring rain and are miserable, but then they see the lights in the distance that must be a fire. They go to the light and send Bilbo ahead to see what it is, since he is their burglar. What he finds is 3 massive trolls. Bilbo's job is to be a burglar, so he tries to burgle the trolls, but he is caught. The dwarves try to rescue Bilbo, but unfortunately, they fail, and all of the dwarves are captured as well. The trolls begin to argue about how they should cook and eat the dwarves. Eventually they decide to wait, but Gandalf shows up and tricks them into arguing again and again until the sun rises, which turns the trolls to stone. Once the dwarves are free, they begin looking for the trolls' cave. Inside they find the trolls' hoard and several swords. Gandalf and Thorin take a sword each, and Bilbo takes a long dagger that works as a sword for a hobbit. They bury the gold that they found in the trolls' hoard before heading out again. After some more traveling they come across elves, and the elves lead them to the last homely house. A place called Rivendell, and the elf lord Elrond welcomes the party and allows them to rest for a while. Elrond helps interpret their map and advises the dwarves. The dwarves head to the Misty Mountains and follow a trail up to the pass. As they go along the trail, a great storm passes over them. Then they see giants fighting in the valley below. In fear the dwarves search for a shelter from the weather. They take rest in a cave, but in the middle of the night a crack opens up in the back of the cave and all of their ponies are stolen by goblins. More goblins appear and capture all of the dwarves. They are brought before the great goblin leader, and when the leader sees the sword Thorin carries, he recognizes it as a sword that has killed many goblins. The goblin leader orders them to be imprisoned, but at that moment smoke and light flashes, and in the confusion the dwarves fight back and kill the great goblin chief. They discover that it was Gandalf who had rescued them. They must run quickly before the goblins attack. Bilbo is separated from the dwarves in the confusion. Bilbo finds himself in utter darkness, and as he crawls along trying to find his way, he happens to feel a ring of metal in the dark. He puts the ring in his pocket. Bilbo pulls his magic sword, and it glows slightly because there are goblins nearby. Bilbo comes upon water and then he meets a creature that makes a Gollum sound in his throat as he talks. Gollum is very curious about Bilbo and decides to play a game of riddles. Gollum tells Bilbo that if Gollum wins, he will eat Bilbo, but if Bilbo wins, he will be free to go. Bilbo is able to answer all of the riddles Gollum asks. When it comes to Bilbo's turn, he cannot think of another riddle and instead asks what he has in his pocket. Gollum cannot answer and agrees to show Bilbo the way out, but first he must go find something. Upon going to his island, Gollum finds out that his precious ring is gone. Bilbo hears Gollum scream and realizes that Gollum intends to kill him, so Bilbo runs and slips the ring on his finger. Gollum catches up and Bilbo fears for his life, but Gollum passes Bilbo by even though Gollum can see in the dark. Bilbo realizes he is invisible and figures that if he follows Gollum, he'll be able to find his way out. Gollum makes his way to the back exit and hides, waiting for a sign of Bilbo. Bilbo knows he's invisible, so he quickly leaps over Gollum, but Gollum hears and tries to catch Bilbo but cannot go outside and screams thief. Bilbo manages to escape the tunnels, but he has lost the dwarves. He considers going back into the tunnels to find his friends, but just then he hears voices and lo and behold, it is the dwarves. The dwarves are incredibly impressed that Bilbo could escape the goblins by himself. As they head down the mountain, they are attacked by wargs. The company scrambles up trees to escape the wargs. Gandalf throws fire at the wargs in an attempt to frighten them off, but it starts the forest afire, which is equally dangerous to the dwarves in the trees. The Lord of the Eagles hears the wolves and comes to investigate along with a few of his guards. When hope is almost lost, the eagles sweep down and gather up the company. The eagles fly them down out of the mountains. Once they are safely out of the misty mountains, Gandalf tells the company that he has other business to attend to and can only be with them for a couple more days. Gandalf introduces the company two at a time to Beorn, a skin changer. Beorn feeds them and allows them to rest in his home. Beorn leaves and confirms that the dwarves' story of killing goblins is true. Afterwards he happily gives them food and supplies along with ponies to help them along their journey. The dwarves continue on their journey and 4 days later they arrive at Mirkwood. They must then let the ponies head back to Beorn's house, and Gandalf must be leaving as well. The dwarves head into the dark forest. As they travel deeper and deeper, the forest becomes so dark that it is as if it is night even in the day. Bilbo also sees eyes in the forest that he believes are more like insects than animals. They get lost in the forest for many days and decide to send Bilbo up a tree to see if he can see where to go, but he is unable to see anything. They continue on, and one day as they are arguing they see light in the forest. They quickly go to it because they are desperate for help, but when they get to it the forest goes dark. Bilbo finds himself alone in the dark and a giant spider is trying to tie him up. Bilbo manages to kill the spider with his sword and names the sword Sting. Bilbo puts on his ring and begins looking for the dwarves. He finds a great mass of spiderwebs, and in the midst of it he finds the dwarves. The spiders intend to eat the dwarves and Bilbo throws stones to kill a couple of spiders. The spiders go after Bilbo and Bilbo leads the spiders away from the dwarves. Once the spiders are away from the dwarves, Bilbo sneaks back and cuts the dwarves down. The spiders return as the dwarves are getting out. The dwarves must fight, but they still have some venom in their veins and find it very hard. Bilbo must use his ring again and go off to draw the spiders away. The dwarves manage to get away and find a clearing where they are safe, but they realize Thorin is not with them. The dwarves are still lost in the forests but end up coming across more lights. Turns out it is elves, and the elves believe the dwarves have been trying to attack them. The elves swiftly capture the dwarves. Bilbo manages to put the ring on and slip the elves notice. He follows the elves back to their home and slips in behind them.